Hi, this is Arthur, and this is a summary and explanation of the story of Cyno's second story quest released in the game Genshin Impact version 4.6. The Traveler and Paimon are visiting Sumeru when they bump into Cyno. Cyno is working on a case and the Traveler decides to help. They meet with Cyrus, a professor at the Academia, a former sage and Cyno's old teacher. Someone sent a letter trying to blackmail Cyrus out of some money. Just then, Cyno notices a suspicious student nearby and arrests them. Turns out that student is actually the sender of the letter and is named Uraka. A little later, Cyno reports further investigation showed Uraka was a mediocre student and had gambling debts. Uraka then heard a rumor Cyrus got a bunch of money from the desert peoples and sent a letter in hopes of an easy payday. As a teacher, Cyrus is concerned about Uraka. Cyrus asks for the letter back so that he can bring it with him when he speaks with Uraka's parents. Cyno retrieves the letter while Cyrus takes the traveler to the local tavern. They invite Tignari and Kale with Kaveh stopping by for a bit. They share a meal and eventually call it a night. The next day, the traveler goes camping with Cyno, Tignari, and Kale near Gandharvaville. They hang out for a while before calling it a night. In the middle of the night, Kaveh and Alhaitham show up. Earlier, Cyrus showed Kaveh the letter and Kaveh realized the emblem of the Temple of Silence was on it. They then rushed over to let them know. The Temple of Silence is an organization that's been in Sumeru for over 1,000 years. They somehow even have an office in the Academia, though it seems obsolete. The Temple of Silence is said to have been established by Anubis, one of the 7 pillars of King Deshret and the greatest of all sages. Side note, King Deshret, also known as Al-Akhmar, was the god king of the ancient desert peoples from whom the Eremites descended. King Deshret and his civilization fell long ago after he unleashed something called Forbidden Knowledge. Forbidden Knowledge played a major part in Sumeru's Archon quests. As for Uraka's letter, that it contained the emblem of the Temple of Silence is highly suspicious. In fact, Alhaitham and Kaveh just told Cyno about it and he ran off, probably to find Cyrus. They come up with a plan and assign tasks. Kale will tell the Core of 30 to look for Cyno and Cyrus. Kaveh and Alhaitham will head to the Academia to find answers. And Tignari and the Traveler will head to Cyrus's house. They head over, but Cyrus and Cyno aren't there. They do find Zaha Hadid, a professor at the Academia and friend of Cyrus. It seems Cyno was just here, but left when he realized Cyrus wasn't. Cyno left Zaha Hadid a letter to give to them asking them not to follow him. They then meet with Kaveh and Alhaitham who tell them Uraka said a person from the desert told him to blackmail Cyrus. That person also handed Uraka the paper he used for his letter. Alhaitham then relays information from Nafis, Tignari's master and the current sage of the Amurda Darshan. Nafis explained the Temple of Silence's office in the Academia is just a facade. In the past, the true Temple of Silence did collaborate with the Academia. That relationship ended about 400 years ago when the Academia began to grow corrupt. The Temple of Silence are the guardians of King Deshret's civilization and belief system. They travel around Sumeru sequestering any related knowledge that posed a threat to others. The Temple of Silence is known as a legitimate and reputable organization. That's why the Academia set up the dummy office. It was to conceal the temple's exit and protect the Academia's reputation. The group discuss and conclude Cyrus clearly recognized the emblem in the letter and kept that knowledge to himself. Cyrus then went out into the desert, intending to meet the Temple of Silence. Just then Nafis comes by and reports Cyrus and Cyno were seen heading towards Caravan Ribat. They come up with a new plan and assign tasks. Nafis will follow up on leads with Uraka. Kaveh and Alhaitham will help Nafis. And Tignari and the Traveler will chase after Cyrus and Cyno. The Traveler and Tignari head to Caravan Ribat where they find Cyno talking to Candace and Dia. Dia says Cyrus likely went to Aru village and they head over with Cyno. Along the way, Cyno explains the source of his power is Anubis. Cyno doesn't remember much of his childhood but does remember being put through trials before going to Sumeru City with Cyrus. At Aru village, they receive information Cyrus went to an oasis. They head over and meet some people who say they've seen Cyrus. They follow these people to a hidden entrance. The Traveler and friends realize these people are members of the Temple of Silence. They enter the entrance and the person leading them says he is Sethos. Sethos confesses he was the one who convinced Uraka to send the letter. A little later they meet Bamun, leader of the Temple of Silence. Cyrus is also there. Bamun and Cyrus then explain their past. A long time ago, Bamun rescued Cyrus and invited him to live at the Temple of Silence. Together, they pursued the revival of Anubis' power in order to strengthen a weakening Temple of Silence. Bamun proposed they implant Ba fragments into the bodies of suitable people. These Ba fragments were pieces of Anubis and contained his power. Successful implantation meant granting a person substantial power. They eventually found 2 suitable candidates, Sethos and Cyno. Sethos was Bamoon's adopted grandson, and Cyno was purchased from some random parents. Their intention was to implant both fragments into one person. However, complications during the procedure meant Cyno and Sethos each received one Ba fragment. Afterward, Cyrus took Cyno to Sumeru City, where Cyno has lived ever since. Cyrus leaving with Cyno was done with Bamoon's permission. However, Bamoon told Cyrus he owed a debt that would eventually be repaid, which is what led to Uraraka's letter. Bamoon now asks Cyno to give back his Ba fragment in exchange for Cyrus's freedom. Just then, Bamoon starts coughing and is taken to his room. Bamoon is apparently very sick. Cyno tells Sethos he needs to think about what he will do, and they end the meeting. The Traveler and friends meet later and discuss using the rules of the Temple of Silence to their advantage. They later meet with Sethos, and Tignari suggests examining Bamoon since he has medical training. After examining him, Tignari concludes Bamoon is gravely ill and only has a few days left. Sethos already knows and tells him a story about Hermanubis' first arrival in the city of Tule Tula. After entering Tule Tula, Hermanubis sparred with its residents for days, earning the respect of many. The first members of the Temple of Silence came from those residents, and the sparring inspired one of their founding rites, the Rite of Duels. Sethos suggests Cyno and his friends battle Sethos and his friends in the Rite of Duels. If Cyno wins, they will release Cyrus. If they lose, Cyno must give up his Ba fragment. Cyno agrees and they meet the next day for the duels. Cyno and friends eventually win, and Sethos gives Cyno his Ba fragment. Bamoon then recounts the history of Hermanubis. Hermanubis was once a warrior of Tignar who emerged from the desert to serve King Deshret. Side note, Hermanubis is the same race as Tignari, known as Tignarians or Valuka Shuna. After King Deshret's death, Hermanubis and his followers went to Tule Tula, where they founded the Temple of Silence. Since then, the Temple of Silence acted as stewards over all knowledge that survived King Deshret's fallen civilization. About a century after that, war arose between the Eremites. Tule Tula survived those conflicts, but was later attacked by Gurabad's forces. The king of Gurabad wanted the Temple of Silence's knowledge. Side note, Gurabad was a fallen kingdom that was featured in many world quests, including the Dirge of Bilqis. Because of this threat, the ruling elite of Tule Tula antagonized the Temple of Silence. Hermanubis, already exhausted from holding back forbidden knowledge, decided to split his being into pieces and bestow his power onto his followers. The Temple of Silence eventually defeated Gurabad's forces, but their victory made the citizens of Tule Tula fearful. As a result, the Temple of Silence and the Tignarians left Tule Tula for Sumeru's forests. Tule Tula would subsequently fall to war. The Temple of Silence would later leave the forests and return to the desert, always staying true to their mission. After recounting this story, Bamoon passes away. Later, they all gather and pay their respects to Bamoon. Sethos says Bamoon's last wish is that whoever possesses the most Ba fragments should be the leader of the Temple of Silence. Cyno instead appoints Sethos as the leader. Cyno adds the Temple of Silence and the Academia will now become partners once more. Sethos confesses he and Bamoon planned for this specific outcome as they believed it would benefit the Temple of Silence. The Traveler and friends then say goodbye and with Cyrus return to the Academia. Once there they see Nafis, Kale, Faruzan, Kaveh, and Al-Haytham. They then head to Puspa Cafe where Cyno treats everyone to coffee and desserts. Afterwards, Tignari, Cyno, and the Traveler head to the top of the Academia and reminisce about their younger days. They notice Cyrus nearby and Cyno walks over and they also reminisce about the past. And that is the end of this quest in this video. If you like what you've seen here, please like, comment, and subscribe.